Over the past few weeks we have been voting for what our favourite Mass Effect 3 multiplayer character was. Now that the votes have been counted, I can reveal the top 10 multiplayer characters as voted by us as a community as we count down to Mass Effect Andromeda's release. So let's take a look at the character who made the number 7 slot, the N7 Shadow Infiltrator. Introduced in the Earth DLC pack to the multiplayer, the N7 Shadow was quite a unique character for an infiltrator. It seemed to have a lot of mechanics based around melee and the use of their sword. Although a human character, the N7 characters were very interesting, unique, and at the same time very powerful. She came with the standard stuff the infiltrator normally came with. She had the tactical cloak so she could go invisible, breaking aggro from enemies, dealing extra damage, and safely taking objectives and reviving allies. But the other two remaining abilities is where she became very unique. Firstly was Shadow Strike, a melee attack that allowed the N7 Shadow to teleport instantly behind an enemy and strike them for heavy damage with their sword. This, while used under the influence of Tactical Cloak, made the attack very powerful, especially if combined with consumables and melee passives. For me personally, this was one of the rare characters that I actually liked to use bonus power in the Tactical Cloak tree. This allowed me to safely Shadow Strike and then follow it up with either a second Shadow Strike or an Electric Slash, which is the N7 Shadow's third ability. Shadow Strike could be spec'd in various ways as well to allow it to set up tech combos, so long as you took the electric damage in the Shadow Strike tree. The N7 Shadow could then detonate this tech burst combo with her third ability, Electric Slash. Talking about the third ability, Electric Slash was a flashy move, unique to the N7 Shadow. Whilst drawing her sword and flipping forward, she would send forth a wave of electric damage. This travelled a fair distance, although it was not infinite, but it could be used to activate tech combos. One of the cheesiest things about the Electric Slash, and in fact the Bartok Slash as well for the N7 Slayer, is that the damage they send forth, the wave, can go through walls, damaging opponents behind it. This way, the N7 Shadow was able to stay out of harm's way and still deal damage to foes behind walls, even if they couldn't actually see them. This provided her a safe option to deal damage against opponents. On top of this, the Tactical Cloak allowed her to drop aggro, giving her more survivability. As for her passives, she had the basic stuff to increase her weapon and power damage. I always went for power damage in this case, as well as a unique one called Sword Mastery. This replaced the fitness passive that normal classes would get. In this tree she could increase the damage of her sword, which was classed as her melee damage. This also added to the power of Shadow Strike and Electric Strike. Going deep into this tree was probably the optimal way to spec this character, going as far as to rank 6 where you could increase the damage of your sword against shields or armour. Of course this meant you sacrificed a little bit of health and shields, but thanks to Tactical Cloak this wasn't really too much of an issue. Now, as well as all of these abilities, she was an acrobatic character, fairly fast, able to dodge out of the way of incoming missiles easily. Thanks to her sword, or it was called a monomolecular blades, her melees were slightly different. She had a combo she could perform whilst tapping the melee button, or if it was held down, it would deal a heavy slash that could result in the decapitation of weaker foes. When I first unlocked this character, it took a little bit of time of getting used to playing her in a melee fashion. Normally on the harder difficulties, melee characters were risky to play. However, with the N7 Shadow and the way I spec'd her, I was still able to perform adequately at these harder difficulties. This is probably solely due to Tactical Cloak. The N7 Shadow, the only other class that bears any similarities to her is the N7 Slayer, the Vanguard character of the Earth DLC. They bear similarities when it comes to their passives, but not so much in their abilities. As for the weaponry with this character, it didn't matter too much in regards to having a light loadout thanks to the Tactical Cloak cooldown cancellation. So with failing that, you could go with pretty much whatever you wanted on this character. Obviously I didn't weigh myself down too much, but I ended up using assault rifles or semi-automatic sniper rifles. Again, for a bit of extra damage you could take some sort of elemental ammo that could be activated with your Electric Slash if it was too risky to get up close in melee range with your opponents. Overall, this class was one of the flashier characters to play, thus I can see it being a lot of fun for some players out there. She is well capable of taking the harder difficulties on the game when compared to some of the classes out there. You just have to remember to wait for opportunities to attack to deal the most damage, while at the same time giving yourself enough leeway to escape situations and make sure you survive. Anyway, as always, a disclaimer, this list is a list that we have voted for together as a community, and while the characters on this list may not be the best at doing the harder difficulties in the game, these are our collective favourites. So anyway, I've been Darcblade, bringing you the top 10 Mass Effect 3 multiplayer characters. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.